mid. That's mid. Because we're in the Midwest here. So everything around here is mid, is what the holy god MJF once said. And you know what else is mid? Midcarders, because they're on the middle of the fight card. Woo, that's what today's episode's about. I think last podcast episode with just me and Hottie, we talked about IC champions. Or no, we did a bracket about IC champions. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm tired. But
it's okay. That is the workhorse champion though, and that is the mid card title. And that's what we are discussing today. Mid carders. People who are not the top of the card, they're not ready to be the face of the company, but they're getting prepped for it. Or they are your workhorses. They are people who will hold it down for your company every single week.
Or they're just like guys who are just given the title just to be given the title. For example, Road Dogg, former IC champion Road Dogg, didn't really do much for that. But I guess I want to talk about the 80s. We never talk about the 80s on this channel, or at least as much as I feel like maybe we should. I feel like it was very mid-card heavy in the 80s. You had babyface boy Tito Santana, one of the first IC champions, I believe, right before Hulkamania, or at least at the very beginning of Hulkamania. You had Junkyard Dog. He was a huge guy. And then Jake the freaking Snake. Like, what was it? What was the mid-card scene like in the 80s? You're old.
I ain't that old. But the mid-card scene in the 80s was insane, I would say. It's probably the best mid-card generation there is. Maybe. Because you got guys like you said, Jake the Snake Roberts going ham. You got guys like Greg Valentine, Brutus the Barber Beefcake, which is an amazing name in itself. That's the most underappreciated name in all of wrestling, I would say.
Brutus the Barber.
Beefcake. He's a beefcake. What other wrestler out here serving beefcakes?
I mean, I'll tell you what. My favorite mid-carder in 1980s was this man. And you guys might know him because all you guys watching back home are nothing but a bunch of sleazy, nasty sweat hogs. It's Ravishing Rick Rude. He was, in my opinion, probably peak mid-card in the 80s. His IC title reign, which, check out that bracket episode or whatever, he wasn't on that bracket. And he is someone who could go very far. He main evented that Intercontinental Championship belt with Ultimate Warrior at SummerSlam in a steel cage match. Rick Rude is doing wonders with the IC title.
Yeah, he definitely was. I remember our Heels episode. We had to talk about Rick Rude, right?
Yeah.
He's one of the greatest heels of all time. One of the first dudes to really give you like vulgar stuff in the ring. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like stuff like people kind of feel uneasy on, like that shouldn't be on TV. So no Rick Rude, no live sex celebration.
But yeah, he would put your wife's face on his trunks. It was mind games, bro.
And then he would put his trunks on his wife's face. You know what I'm saying?
Bro. Yes. Shit got intense. And of course, you can't talk about mid-card in the 80s. And this is kind of early 90s too. But Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig. He is one of the best wrestlers in WWE who had one hell of a persona that never won the title, the WWE title. And he should have. And he is another person who wasn't on the list, I think, in the tournament, who should have.
They left so many people off that bracket. Yeah.
The Miz, Randy Orton. That bracket sucked. But yeah, Mr.
We narrowed it down.
Yeah.
Mr. Perfect was perfect. He was amazing. Arguably the best scoop suplex in the game. That one-legged suplex, the perfect
plex.
What's it called? Perfect plex. Yeah. How about call it the perfect bomb? I was like, no.
I remember when I was a
Muhammad
kid.
Hassan's finisher. The perfect bomb.
Oh my god, Muhammad Hassan was huge in the mid card for a time, so that's relevant. He was 2004. Shit, he was going against the Undertaker. He almost beat the Undertaker.
Yeah.
I thought Mr. Perfect was so cool when he was like throwing a football and then he caught the football that he threw. When I was a little kid, I was like, "Whoa, that's possible!" But again, in the '80s, you had mid. We talked about the IC title was supposed to elevate you into the top game. And I feel like in the '80s, it was very something that was evident. You had Randy Savage, who was, again, put on mid card matches against Ricky Steamboat, which was, again, a banger. And then Randy Savage, after that, a couple WrestleManias later, he's out here winning the world championship, beating Ted DiBiase. That's like, yeah, man.
Randy Savage, I think when we were doing that bracket, was at the top of like that Intercontinental Championship list. He's one of the best to ever do it. He's only held it one time, but he
Yeah.
held it for like 300 plus days, right? It was amazing. And that, like you were saying, that's one of those guys where that it did what the mid card was supposed to do, elevate that talent to the level where he's going to be the world champion someday. He's going to be the face of the company. And now what? Macho Man is one of the most recognizable faces of wrestling. So Macho Man, Mr. Perfect. Who would you say, like, from the 80s, are like the four guys who embody mid card? Because also we haven't really talked about him, but Roddy Piper
I
is
was
one
gonna
of the
say that, yeah.
greatest mid carders ever in history. This man is someone who you felt like didn't ever need to hold the title, and that's evident because he didn't hold many. He was there and he showed out. It doesn't even matter if he was in the ring, if he was doing a talk show segment, if it was Piper's Pit, if it was backstage, if it was on Saturday mornings with Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby Heenan and going back and forth with Rick Rude. It was amazing. It doesn't matter what this did, dude. It was high level and he was consistent. And that's what a mid carder is, consistent.
Yeah, Roddy Piper was, again, he's one of my favorite mid carders of all time. That being said, there is part of me that thinks, yeah, he was a mid carder, but at the same time, he wasn't. He was a main event status guy who just never really won a title, and that's fine. But he has been like, I feel like when it comes to top heels in the '80s, it was definitely Roddy Piper against Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
Hulk Hogan or Roddy even got to main event a WrestleMania or one of the WrestleManias in WrestleMania 2 against Mr. T in a boxing match. That was one
And
of the worst matches I've seen, actually.
he was in the main event of WrestleMania 1, the tag team
Yeah, the
match.
first
Right. So
WrestleMania.
I guess that's true. How can you be a mid carder if you're main eventing WrestleMania? But
It's weird because I mean, same thing with Ultimate Warrior, right? Except it's kind of different because like I feel like he was a mid carder when it came. He held the mid card belt, and that was supposed to
yeah.
propel him. And then, like in the middle of that reign, he wrestled against Hulk Hogan at the main event of WrestleMania.
Yeah.
So, which is crazy because Rick Rude, Ultimate Warrior, they're type of guys who, despite having matches with the mid card title, they were main eventing shows, main eventing pay per views. So, I mean, but that showed you
Kind
how powerful those guys were, especially Rick Rude and Ultimate
of,
Warrior.
it kind of proves how, like, the mid card title is not always a mid card title.
Mhm.
It's a doesn't always end up being that way. Uh, like you said, when it's continuously main eventing, like how it was with the Miz at one point,
Yeah,
it kind of stops being a mid card title. It becomes relevant. It's kind of like I would not call Gunther today a mid carder. You know, he does hold the mid card title, but he feels like we talk about the prestige element. We talk about the defenses. He's at the he's at star level. This is not a mid carder to me. Same if like let's say if Sami Zayn was to win that title right now, he wouldn't be mid carder to me. Uh,
yeah,
we'll get more into the present day about like who are the mid carders, but that's why guys like Warrior, I wouldn't maybe even Piper, like they wouldn't be considered mid carders. But of the '80s, you already mentioned Jake the Snake Roberts, but like to me, that is the mid carder of the '80s, right?
yeah,
He is the one who is the greatest mid carder to ever do it, and I've never seen a DDT look so deadly.
yeah, bro. Move over everyone who does DDTs. Move over Randy, John Moxley. I don't think he does a Dirty Deeds DDT anymore, does he not? It's more
It's
of
like
just like a pile
cut.
driver type.
I don't even know. It kind of lifts him sometimes. Paradigm shift. I don't know. He just kind of tucks him into to his body.
Because I remember the paradigm shift when he first did it. It was different than it was now. So I don't know, but I kind of want to go back to that top stars winning the mid carder card championships. You had, I feel like 2015 was evident when everyone was getting injured. 2015, 2016. This is when you see John Cena win the U.S. title and have the open challenges, which open challenges can be bad, can lose prestige. But John Cena somehow made it consistent. Every match was important, and it was. I remember in 2015, I was peak wrestling fan. As a little kid, I was 11 years old in 2015. Um, and John Cena U.S. title open challenges were probably some of the best television that they ever had, and made the U.S. title seem more important than it ever was. Honestly.
Completely agree. John Cena opens like we talked about open challenges before and how sometimes they can be pretty bad for what if you're especially for the goal of trying to get over with the championship. Um, but the fact that John Cena was bringing in new guys you haven't seen on TV before and consistently putting on great matches. I remember matches with Cesaro, with Sami
Mhm.
Zayn, with Kevin Owens, with Alberto Del Rio, with Dolph Ziggler, with about to say Matt Ryder, Zack Ryder, Matt Cardona, Zack Ryder. Because every match, every match actually made you believe that this guy was gonna beat John Cena, and then John Cena's gonna land the attitude adjustment, and your dreams are gonna get crushed, and you're gonna go home and cry. But that is a perfect example of how a mid card kind of should be. It's guys who are kind of learning how to be stars. Obviously, John Cena is helping these guys to be stars. Who else would better fit that role than one of the biggest stars of not only our generation of all time than John Cena? He is the elevator. I know he kind of has that reputation for burying, but he, in my opinion, he is the elevator of this business.
Yeah. 2015 was such a good year for John Cena, and it really showed that you don't really need a main event to make the mid card title just so important. Um, which sometimes is a good thing to have main eventers hold the mid card title. For another recent example is with when Seth Rollins won the IC title, I believe, in 2017, 2018. And he had a whole feud with Dolph Ziggler, which admittedly kind of sucked sometimes, but they made that title important still. Dolph Ziggler, Seth Rollins having probably the most important feud on Raw, main eventing pay per views once again. Like, I mean, and people like the Miz, Dolph Ziggler again. When Brock Lesnar's gone, the Miz steps in, and Miz is probably one of the greatest mid carders. And it's weird because Miz has won the WWE Championship twice, but I still consider him a mid carder. Honestly, even when he won those world titles, even if he main evented WrestleMania, he'll always be known as a mid carder to me.
I mean, I would say especially today, right?
Yeah.
Like today's probably like his most mid cardiness ever. But we talked about the 80s and the jobbers. What do you think about the 90s and the that kind of new generation to attitude era? Who are the jobbers of those generations that you remember?
Jobbers or mid carders?
Mid Carters. I don't know why I said jobbers.
You're calling Rick Rude a bunch of jabronis, Rick Rude, Mr. Perfect?
They're all
Disrespect.
dead. They're all dead.
Off topic, but I was looking some stuff up for a future mini documentary that we're probably gonna have soon, which I'm doing so much research on
Soon.
that shit. Yeah, soon. We'll see. But um I was at this forum, and like, remember back in the 2000s, early 2010s, maybe even, but really just in the 2000s, where you had those like weird forums where everyone would be talking with each other, and they're always like sketchy looking. Well, I found a wrestling forum, and one was like saying, "I'm fucking Stephanie." I guess they're saying McMahon, and then like their little like mini bio is like, "It's Kurt Hennig, not Kurt Henning, you fa." Homophobic word.
Wow.
Anyways, I'm sorry. That just reminded me of that. I just had to, do that. But anyways, when
How
it
would
comes
that
to
remind you of this? What?
Oh no, Mr. Perfect. I was talking about Mr. Perfect.
We mentioned Rick Rude though.
I was, I
Mr.
was.
Perfect didn't even come up.
Yes, he did. I mentioned Mr. Perfect. Roll it back.
Roll
Roll
it
it back.
back. We're talking about Rick Rude, and then you brought up Mr. Perfect for the story.
No, I brought up Mr. Perfect, and then I was like, oh my god, Mr. Perfect, the homophobic guy on that wrestling forum in 2007. Shout out. But anyways, when it comes to '90s mid carding, you had people like Shawn Michaels building up in the mid card, going up to the main event scene, which was great. Rick Martel, you remember him? He was kind of a mid carder technically. Um, my favorite mid carder from the '90s. It's Gold Dust, dude. Has to be. Specifically when he was mid '90s, Goldust was the shit, bro. In his lingerie, going against Roddy Piper, making out with Roddy Piper, that was funny. Um, him getting dragged on with the leash by Terry Runnels, I think, right? Yeah, she went by a different name, right?
I think
I
it was just
forgot.
Terry.
It was just Terry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Goldust was great, man. The matches he had with the Undertaker were actually pretty entertaining. I'm not gonna lie to
Right.
you.
Right.
And Owen Hart is another person in the '90s who I think is definitely like huge. We mentioned Owen Hart like every podcast episode. Do you realize that?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
What are you thinking? What are you thinking about Owen Hart, huh?
I mean, I'm gonna save what I have to say about him for. Obviously, we're gonna do a high flying episode pretty soon. I'll save that for that. As always.
As
But no,
always.
Owen Hart. And obviously, when we talk about black champions, we have to mention Owen Hart. Mark,
Post on the screen. Post on the screen.
that's a brother right there. You can tell
Remember
in
that
his
one like
soul.
speaking of like um black people in mid carders.
Oh my god, we're gonna get canceled, man. We're gonna get
No,
canceled.
remember that one time when Christian was backstage with Mark Henry, MVP, and Kofi Kingston, and he's like, "Listen, I understand that I'm a little different than you guys. You know, you guys know what I'm saying, right?" And they're like, yeah, what? I'm from Canada.
I'm Canadian.
I'm Canadian. Christian was another good mid carder, which I guess technically at the end of '90s, but mostly 2000s and 2010s.
Yeah, yeah. I think '90s is more to think of him as like a tag team guy, right?
That's true.
But when I think mid card for the '90s, automatically I think of Razor Ramon.
I was about to
Like,
say that too. Chico.
yeah. Oh, calm down.
My bad.
Yeah, Razor Ramon was the guy because these guys are performing obviously in the middle of the show, correct? Mid Carter, but they are tearing the house down at in the middle of the show, which they're not supposed to. This is the part of the show where the fans are kind of tired. They kind of, they just cheered all night long for the opening couple of acts, and they're gonna cheer all night for the ending. So they're kind of tired right now. But WrestleMania 10, Shawn Michaels, Razor Ramon, Intercontinental Championship ladder match, tore the house down. Literally, like, I think that was the best match of that card.
Uh,
And that's the power of the mid card.
yeah, I mean, shit, man. That WrestleMania 10 was great because not only did it have that, it had Brett versus Owen, bro, at the beginning of the show, right? Yeah, that was fucking fantastic too. And then I think Razor and Michaels played it back, and I believe when they did play it back at SummerSlam, that was the main event because they realized, holy shit, that was such a
Right?
powerhouse in the mid card.
Right?
Another mid carder that I have to shout out in the '90s. All aboard! It's the Ho Train, the Godfather, bro. He was
Oh.
honestly okay. I do have a problem with the '90s mid carders though, specifically Attitude Era. The IC Championship was getting passed around too much. There was no prestige to the IC Championship. It was given to people like Ken Shamrock, who was a good mid carder.
Hey, man.
He was a good.
It's
I love
Ken.
Ken Shamrock, but Ken Shamrock held it for like 20 days, passed it off to Godfather probably, then Val Venus held it, then Billy Gunn held it, then Road Dogg. Billy Gunn, he was someone who was supposed to win the IC Championship and then win the World Championship after, but I think that failed.
Because of
But
Bob.
yeah, fucking.
My
But
name's Billy.
it was Rock's fault. Jeff Jarrett, another mid carder who was amazing with the IC Championship. you know. And I'm really starting to come around to these things. New generation era had a better mid card than it did a main event scene, like 9 times out of 10. You know what
Oh
you think
yeah,
about it?
I
Like,
think those are the all the stars of the Attitude Era were the mid card of the new generation, and like that
yeah,
was one of the best eras ever, Attitude Era, right? So we have to thank the mid card of the new generation for giving us what would be the Attitude Era. Um, Dang, I don't know why. I just started thinking about The Godfather more after you mentioned it, and how much I like go. I knew he was funny, but I went back and started watching like old Raws, old pay per views, and I'm like, oh my god, why was this on TV? Why
the whole
why is there a pimp?
train.
But then I
What?
also started thinking about like who are some of the mid carders at the time from WCW, you know?
It's yeah. I, when I was younger, I definitely didn't watch WCW. That was something I watched more when I'm older. You know, more appreciative of the wrestling business. The mid Carter, it was tough to tell. I mean, Booker T was someone who was kind of in the mid card area for a little bit. I'd say even Roddy Piper, even in WCW, because he won the U.S. Championship. Disco Inferno, can't forget about him. Remember Disco Inferno? Holy shit, he was cold.
Not that I'd like to, but
Really?
cold, not cold. What about Too Cold Scorpio? Now
Yeah.
that was a cold cat. Too Cold Scorpio was awesome, and I remember WCW having some. Dude, how can we forget Willie Regal?
Yeah,
Willie Regal
of
up in
course.
WCW was killing it. This dude
He's a
and
man.
Finley.
Finn.
Finley in WCW. We just did an interview with Kiefer Bartek, and we spent like a good 5 minutes just talking about how cool Finley was. Finley is awesome. Like how this dude dominate like the like kind of not dominate. He was kind of nobody in WCW for a long time.
Yeah.
Shows up on 2008 SmackDown in in like main events out of nowhere. Like he just ends up like fighting the Undertaker. Like where was he for like 10 years? Nobody knows.
Yeah, where was he during that? I think he was a producer or something for WWE early
He was smoking
2000s.
crack, making
Probably. And then,
Hornswoggle babies. They had
oh,
to wait for
man.
Hornswoggle to grow up before you could
Yeah.
tell.
We're
Can
able
I
to.
please enter the storyline? They're like, nah, you got to grow up first.
I feel like more WCW mid carders, the Radicals, dude. You had Dean Malenko, you had Chris Benoit, you had Eddie Guerrero, Perry Saturn had his thing, Rey Mysterio. You know, he was a huge mid carder. And I'm also thinking about the cruiserweight division, honestly, because I know that you had the U.S. WCW Championship. I don't really know much about the US WCW Championship. I was always focused on the cruiserweight division because that was always the best wrestling. Because honestly, WCW kind of sucked on the latter half of it, and the cruiserweight division was carrying it. The giant killer Rey Mysterio gimmick that he had was sick as fuck.
That WCW US Championship though is one of the best looking belts
It's a good
in
belt.
the history. It's so nice. It's so pretty. I remember Goldberg holding it for a long time and then taking the World Heavyweight Championship and having both. Bret Hart held the title. Stunning Steve Austin held the title.
Mm,
Many big names like Stunning Steve Austin, somebody who obviously no one would know what he would become holding that title, being the mid carder he was, and he had to drop it so he can team with Pillman. And boom, mid carder, two amazing. And speaking of Pillman, I hear Brian Pillman Jr. is officially signed
yeah.
to
It
WWE now.
officially signed?
Officially, but low key. That's what I'm hearing.
Man, good for
This is
him.
the dirt sheets.
He needs to like go to WWE and maybe build his own character, bro.
I thought I should have went to AAA to be honest, but I think WWE is a pretty good place.
I mean, shit. As long as they don't change his gimmick tragic too much, he should be like Brian Pillman Jr. Actually, you know, I
BP
actually
two.
just I actually just read about Brian Pillman Jr. And found out how much he hated his mom for being a druggie. You know, and remember
That's
when
awesome, bro.
Vince interviewed Brian Pillman's wife or Brian Pillman Jr.'s mom the day after he died? It's kind of tasteless, bro. But
Ratings are ratings. Stop hating.
apparently they financially helped out Brian Pillman though, Junior. But Brian Pillman is someone in the mid card in WWE who was kind of always. It was weird. He was very entertaining in the short time he was there.
Yeah. The man pulled out a gun on live
Dude,
TV.
bro, Brian Pillman going face to face with Steve Austin, bro. That shit was like, I think the little promo battle. Holy shit, it was so good. They had such
I-
good chemistry. Best friends for life. Rest in
Definitely.
peace, Brian.
You think about how influential that ended up being, like the whole Triple H Randy Orton thing in 2009 with the breaking in the house. The whole time you just think about Pillman Austin, and you're like,
Yeah,
this is good, but this is not Pillman Austin. They had a gun.
no, yeah. They had to cut the T. I don't understand why that was so controversial. That was cool as fuck. I don't care what you say. I
I
felt
think people actually
immersed.
thought Stone Cold got shot because they immediately cut out.
Brian Pillman was shoot fucking killing Steve
He's like, it's
Austin.
part of the script. What am I supposed to do? It says shoot
Yeah,
Steve Austin.
Brian Pillman, dude. Every time I look at him, I think of Kurt Cobain. Just wanted to just release that information. But name your favorite mid Carter in the 90s. Your your fave. Your
Favorite?
fave.
Favorite? I would have to say Chris Jericho. Um,
Oh, yo, fuck, I forgot Chris Jarrett. Yeah, in WCW, yeah. It's really
yeah, I think
fucking good there.
Chris Jericho was like, because the cruiserweight division is known for the most entertaining wrestling, right? Chris Jericho brought personality to it too, though. He's like the
Yeah.
opposite of Dean Malenko. He's interesting, or like Lance Storm.
Oh, yeah.
um,
Lance Storm's not a
yeah,
good mid Carter though. I'll give him that.
yeah, and he's like a cool dude. But the personality, Chris Jericho was entertaining. He was funny. He was likable. He was good looking. He had a great build.
Armbar.
Yeah.
The
And
man.
I remember, I think when he got to WWE, he tried to put like an arm hold on Big Show, and Big Show ended up beating the crap out of him backstage for that. He's like, "Why are you putting an arm hold on me? I'm a big man." Um, yeah, Jericho always entertaining, always awesome. When he made his debut in WWE, it was the coolest debut of all time. It was amazing. Yeah.
Bro, yeah, when the countdown was clicking, he interrupts none other than The Rock. Don't forget, you're talking about the man who eventually got to beat The Rock and Steve Austin on the same night. Are you freaking serious? But my favorite in the 90s had to be, man, it's tough. It had to be Goldust, I guess. Cuz that's when I just started falling in love with Goldust. I don't know why. He was just so funny and goofy and weird, and as a little kid it was enjoyable. And he actually did put on some killer matches though. I'll give him that. Goldust was always, in my opinion, one of the most underrated wrestlers of all time. Same with William Regal. Talking about him, like, so underrated, dude. But I guess moving on to the 2000s, you have talent from WCW going to WWE, some of them becoming successful mid carders like Eddie and Chris, who eventually held those mid card titles, like we said, elevating them to the main event status. That's wow. And then, of course, Rob Van Dam, same thing. Rob Van Dam, in my opinion, when I think of like 2000s, at least Ruthless Aggression, it's either him or Shelton Benjamin that first come to mind when it comes to mid card holding placement there. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Those guys are definitely up there. Personally, my number one guy for the mid card is Carlito.
Oh,
Carlito
yeah.
was the mid card, in my opinion. Like 2004 to 2008, that dude was everywhere, and he was the one who was always, he had all the right tools except the work ethic, the drive to be the guy. He
That
could have
Ric
been,
Flair.
yeah, Ric Flair got smacked the shit out. Some people in this world just don't have um the care and the drive to be the best and to put everything they have into what they are doing. But you got to have that if you want to be successful. And Carlito's just not that guy, unfortunately. Maybe if he was old, he's also a really young guy, right? You can't blame him for some of that stuff. I think of Randy Orton when he was young. If he wasn't Randy Orton, he would have gotten the Carlito treatment, because he was the same way. He was just so naturally gifted that he could get away with it, like Carlito. Um, Another
Carlos
guy I think of,
Colon.
yeah, another guy I think of is the MVP.
Mm.
Um, Ballin, right? This dude's debut entrance package was dope. He had the, like, inflatable tunnel. He had the smoke. He had the cool theme song. I'm coming. It's like it's
He
amazing.
hated that theme song apparently.
I love it.
Yeah, it's was a fucking banger. Yeah, 2000. Chris Masters. You remember Chris Masters, the
Oh,
masterpiece?
dude, that's I to this day probably one of the most impressive physical builds I've ever seen in wrestling. Like
Hmm.
the masterpiece. The entrance was so cool too, with like the showering pyro
Yeah,
and him just posing, and then like the Titantron videos, like Roman-esque like marble statues.
dude.
Oh my, he's another guy. If he just had personality, like it would have worked,
Honestly, bro, and it's a shame because he had so much potential too. And same with
right?
Carlito. Except Carlito, he had the personality. He even had the in ring work. It's just again, like you said, the work ethic. He had a little work shoot interview, or not interview, a work shoot promo with Ric Flair, backstage, and I'm like, damn, Ric Flair's really going at him. John Cena sort of just did the same thing with Austin Theory earlier this year, trying to give him a wake up call, work shoot little promo,
I feel like
which was
Austin is just doing what he's told though.
Austin Theory is just trying his best,
Yeah,
man.
exactly.
Like he doesn't
Carly
pop bottles.
Carly's a little different. Yeah, exactly. He just wants to pop bottles, sparkles, and champagne. Why John Cena gotta be such a mean guy?
Honestly, Rikishi is someone who, even though he main evented, he was also a top mid carder. If you think about it, the
Kishi.
fat ass, bro. See that ass? Put it on the screen right now, Hottie.
Okay. Rikishi, aka the thong wearing fatty. This man defined late 90s, early 2000s, but I will never forgive him for running over Stone Cold Steve Austin,
But why did he
which
do it?
ended up being Triple H. I did it for The Rock. I did it
Mm.
for the. Shut up, you thong wearing fatty. Um,
Shut up, you thong wearing back. That's crazy when he had that huge push where he was main evented.
I like.
That was
I
that was a
sorry, go ahead.
six man Armageddon Hell in the Cell match though.
I love how wrestling works, where it's like, my cousin, I want you to succeed in this business. I'm gonna kill your rival.
That's what I'm saying,
Storylines
bro.
don't get better than this.
You kill your rival. I mean, at this point, there was really only one mid card title. I mean, yes, you had the European Championship, but mostly it was the Intercontinental Championship considered as the mid card. The European title's gone. It's just the IC and the world title. But what do you have to bring? There's a brand split coming our way. You have to bring back the United States Championship from WCW because we bought the acquisitions and ownership rights, and we got to have a tournament for it. And who better to have a finale United States Championship tournament at Vengeance 2003? Eddie Guerrero versus Chris Benoit for the United States Championship. Eddie winning the championship, becoming the first WWE United States Champion, which I always forget. But the match, fuck, you could never go wrong with Eddie versus Chris, dude. The chemistry was
You
outstanding.
can at ECW One Night Stand 2006. That's
Oh,
where you can go wrong.
yeah. Oh
Or
my god,
2005.
Eddie was so pissed at Chris, bro.
I think Eddie was more pissed with himself because he knew he was gassed and he knew he wasn't doing him right. That's why he apologized. Uh, but that it's interesting. WWE brought in the WCW United States Championship, had Edge win it, deactivate it, and then the next year, like bring it
That's
back.
right. Yeah, you're right. Edge technically won it, right? And because Lance Storm had it, I think for a bit, and then did he
I
come in? I don't
I'm not
remember.
even sure, but I remember they did the unification with the Intercontinental Championship,
Mm.
and they did a lot of unification. They unified the European and the Intercontinental Championship. I think that was Jeff Hardy versus RVD in a ladder match. They used to have the light heavyweight championship, which guys like Scotty 2 Hotty won. Guys like Jeff Hardy,
I'm Tana Mini. What's his name?
Taka Michinoku.
Taka Michioku. Man, yeah, he had one killer match. Remember when? I think it was him versus Christian. I think was it him versus Christian? That was actually not bad, actually.
Yeah, since we're in the 2000s, Christian. Christian is
Oh
like,
yeah, Christian Tyson Tomko with him too
oh
sometimes.
my God. 2007 Christian, in my opinion, is peak Christian. This dude could have been the WWE champion. He had the whole world behind him when he faced John Cena. To be fair, everyone was behind anyone who faced John Cena. Um,
Yeah,
but
Sabu
Chris,
versus John Cena.
That was crazy, man. When they brought in the ECW originals, it was interesting because
Yeah.
you didn't think any of them were gonna really be there. Like, how does a guy like Sandman work under contract?
It was good at first, honestly. At least when they had the one night stands, and it was actually one night. Like the first one night stand was good. Second one was also pretty good, and
Ended
then
up being
the
like a 4 night stand because they kept just doing it.
yeah, bro. It's like whenever you go on Tinder and then you fuck this one girl, and then this girl's like, "Hey, let's do this another time." And then 3 months later, you're like, "Oh, let's do it again." And then 7 months later, you like do it again. You know what I'm saying,
This
honey?
sounds really personal. I'm gonna let you air that out.
But talking about Midcarders, I mean, we mentioned Shelton Benjamin a little bit. Everyone was on
Yeah.
Shelton Benjamin's dick, as they should be. Whenever he was like kind of out of Team Angle, Taboo Tuesday, no one expected what?
You're like, as they should be. Like, why? Like, why?
Because he was cool, man. He knew how to wrestle.
Okay. There's a lot of cool guys. I'm not gonna do that.
but but yeah, Shelton Benjamin, he was voted for fighting Chris Jericho for the IC title. Remember that? No one expected him to win. People expected Batista to win. Jonathan Coachman won third in that vote, by the way. Just want to remind everyone about that. But
Yeah.
Shelton Benjamin versus Shawn Michaels, by the way. One of the best matches
Dude,
on Raw, in my opinion.
let's not forget, after Shelton Benjamin, by the way, like 3 months into his career on SmackDown, wins the tag team titles with Charlie Haas, beats Los Guerreros, gets moved to Raw to be a singles contender. Charlie Haas gets thrown to the wind. This dude shows up on Raw and beats Triple H 3 times in a row.
That's fucking crazy.
Like, he is getting pushed. Red, ugly trunks and everything. And he eventually wins that IC championship. He defends it, and he unfortunately had to lose it. I think I remember who it was, man. I remember who it was. Crap. Okay, whatever. But he loses it, and then kind of his steam slows down. Gets moved to ECW eventually, becomes the gold standard, becomes racist against Japanese people like Yoshitatsu.
Gets his mother involved.
Oh yeah,
But
Big
I mean,
Mama.
another cool mid Carter who we mentioned a little bit. Jeff Hardy, bro, in the 2000s, early stuff. This is when you started to love Jeff Hardy, right? Until you,
Dude,
man.
yeah. Jeff Hardy could have always been a main eventer if he wanted to, if he would just stop doing drugs.
Shawn Michaels did it, and look at him now.
He's
He is a
different.
lazy eye.
You know, Shawn was Vince's little baby boy.
Yeah.
This is different.
Yeah,
Jeff
bro.
Hardy was a problem. Every time they put a title on him, they were always like, okay, you can't. Why do you think he's held the Intercontinental Championship so many times? It's never for a long time. He has to lose it before he starts using again.
He had a sick match with Umaga, by the way. Ooh.
Dude, the last man, I think they had a false count anywhere match,
Think
and
so.
he did the whisper of was it? No, he did the swanton bomb off the truck onto Umaga. That was pretty sick. And the steel cage match, of course, where Randy Orton just like, of course, gotta love it.
I freaking love Jeff Hardy. Again, eventually he got the IC title, and eventually he was able to rise up to win the WWE Championship. I believe multiple times, right? He won it twice, right?
He won the WWE Championship once and the World Heavyweight Championship twice. But
Okay.
he was so hot in 2008. Literally, like the top 2 Google searches was Barack Obama and then Jeff Hardy.
That's crazy to think of, actually. That's crazy. How do you remember that? How do you? You were probably like what, 9 years old? You were looking that shit up. 8 years old.
I'm just looking up Jeff Hardy. Jeff Hardy, big booty.
Oh, of course. But at the end of 2000s, I'm trying to think of who was mid Carter at the end of 2000s.
Mr. Kennedy.
Mr. Kennedy, and then Randy Orton was like, "Fire this motherfucker! He hurt me." Damn.
Yeah. Also, Triple H getting in Vince's ear about Kennedy as well. He's maybe he's not ready. So fire him and don't develop him any further. I also think about Chavo. Chavo was so clean in the ring, I think we'll probably like when we talk about underrated talents, we don't even talk about him. So like he's more underrated than underrated. He is the lowest rating that deserves to be higher.
Man,
Um,
yeah. Let me some Chris or not Chris. What the hell? Chavo Guerrero, Chris Guerrero, bro. Um, but I'll tell you what. Out of the 2000s, who was your favorite?
favorite mid carder,
Yeah, this is
probably
also
Finley.
Finley.
I love Finley so much. Because SmackDown vs. Raw 2008, Finley was my main, like 76 overall, lowest in the game, one of the lowest, and I would always use him all the time. And I would just scream Finlay. It would be so
My
funny though
name is Finley.
when
I
you do the
love.
my GM mode and you have like the draft. First pick always ECW picks Undertaker. SmackDown picks Shawn Michaels. I just pick Finley first. Finley going first in the draft. He's getting the 1 year contract. John Cena, you're not coming to Raw. Batista, you're not coming to Raw. Randy, you're not coming to Raw. Finley is coming to Raw, and he's the WWE champion.
Man, my favorite mid Carter. This might be controversial. This might be controversial,
It's
but
not
my
Chris
favorite, my favorite mid Carter. It's not Chris Benoit actually.
Thank God.
um, it's because this man you might not even consider him a mid Carter, but I'm gonna consider this specific era of him. Ruthless aggression. John Cena is probably up there. Because he was huge in the mid card too. He was instead of the IC title building him up, the US title built him up. Um, John Cena had one hell of a mid card run when he was Doctor of Thugonomics, and of course, eventually he became Super Cena. So I'm not talking about that era of John Cena, but surprisingly, there was a time when John Cena was actually a mid card talent. Yeah.
I feel like we never get to talk about the guy who ran ECW, Marcus Corvon. Marcus Corvon is, in my opinion, you have
My
Hogan,
favorite.
you have The Rock, you have Cena, then you have Marcus Corvon.
Yeah.
That's like the Mount Rushmore of wrestling. Um,
Mine
I
was a light
forgot his
year.
name. I forgot. Oh God. I forgot his name in TNA, but I remember Marcus Corvon doing the pounce as his finisher, and it was like freaking awesome. I remember him and Christian also. The what's the capital of Thailand? Bangkok, and they just slap him.
Oh, no, that was my Marcus Corvon. Man, I haven't even
Yeah,
heard of that name in so long, dude. This
SmackDown
is
was Raw 2008, man.
yeah.
SmackDown was Raw 2008.
Jimmy Wang Yang. Shout out to Jimmy Wang Yang.
That's below a mid card. That's literally like go back to developmental, dog.
hey, hey, let's not forget he was actually top 5, um, in that World Heavyweight Championship Battle Royal on SmackDown. If you know what I'm talking about in
That
2006.
dude has gotten suspended more times for weed than like him and Brian Kendrick both. They just would not stop because they were like, "Oh, it's just $1,000 fine. We'll be fine." No, dude, you get like, how much money do you have where you can afford this stuff? Because at that level, you're not getting paid a lot. Like Super Crazy had to quit.
Matt, bro. I mean, unless you're Matt Riddle, he'll be let go. He probably still smokes weed every day.
He grows
Um,
that stuff. He's fine.
he grows that. If Rob Van Dam was in his prime today, he would probably be so much better. He wouldn't have to be suspended. He would be a WWE champion.
I mean, he was WWE champion.
Yeah, but then he got his strip taken out. He got stripped off of him for weed.
Got that DUI.
DUI. But
But
2010s and now. Let's talk about 2010s and now, I guess. I'm already gonna tell you the best Mick Carter without question. He even leads on from the 2000s. Johnny Nitro John Morrison. I fucking love John Morrison. I'm not even shitting. Why do you look like you have a surprised face? I said John Morrison.
no, I'm not surprised at
Oh,
all.
oh yeah, John Morrison.
I'm just looking at you.
Oh, okay. 2010 was John Morrison's year, I would say. That's when I first started wrestling, and John Morrison is probably one of my favorite wrestlers. There, probably even more. He's more my favorite than John Cena was because he did all these flips and stuff, and he was such a persona, bro. And I feel like he's such a better face than heel, in my opinion. In 2010, he
Great
was
at both.
great at both, definitely. The dirt sheet, I fucking love the dirt sheet, dude. Hi, my name's John Morrison, and I was on a houseboat with Joan Rivers. Were you ever on a houseboat, Miz? I fucking love the dirt sheet. Um, but I just saw an episode of the dirt sheet, and it was like Miz going blackface. Or hand he made his hand blackface to make it look like Elijah Burke. You know those hand puppets where
Yeah,
you're like,
yeah.
but anyways, yeah, John Morrison was sick on the mid card, but and he was a sick IC champion in my opinion. He was in main event matches. There was a time where he was a main eventer, you could say, main eventing against Miz, John Cena.
Him and Jeff Hardy had a great back and forth for that IC title.
Yeah.
Um, I just had someone in mind. I literally just had someone in mind. But 2010s and on, I think Ryback, guys like Rusev, guys who
Damien
are
did
guys who are basically at the level where they're on the cusp of being main event, but could never really cross that threshold. Those who I guys I think were the elite of the mid card. Obviously, now we know that Ryback did not wash his hands after he poops and cannot obtain the WWE title, um, according to Daniel Bryan, of course. But I think the biggest mid card of 2010 on, I think, ever is Dolph Ziggler. He
Oh
is
yeah.
the who else spent this long on the mid card? You know, even when he had the world title, he was on the mid card. Like,
Poor guy.
like he has always. And when we talked about the definition of like a mid carder, a workhorse, consistent, always there for you, Dolph Ziggler is that guy. He is the definition of mid card.
Yeah, honestly, and like we said before, Dolph, one of the best storylines in
Darth.
2016 was Dolph Ziggler and The Miz. Whenever The Miz brought back the Spirit Squad, and then Dolph Ziggler that killer babyface promo, which there's not many babyface promos that really I can say is like holy shit. But Dolph Ziggler's like babyface promo where he was like, "No one believed in me, but damn it, I believe in myself," or something inspirational like that. It worked when he said it. I miss Dolph Ziggler. Where is he? He's not on TV anymore.
Both of the dirty dogs have been written off. I guess until Bobby Roode comes back from his back pain.
I don't want them to
Um,
be a tag team, bro. Yeah,
I think that's the only way they're gonna be on TV.
that
So
sucks.
I'm a
But yeah, Dolph Ziggler is a huge star. Whenever he cashed in the Money in the Bank contract to win the world title, everyone was freaking out. Still was a mid carder even when he won it. The Miz is someone who we shouldn't forget. Again, we mentioned him a little bit. Miz is someone who took this IC title and elevated it to the main event so many times, more than I can even say. And he always brings it up. Talking smack, he would bring it up. He would bring it up on Raw Talk. He would bring it up on Raw Promos, Miz TV. 2017, 2016 Miz is peak Miz entertainment.
I think 2010 on is kind of a change for the mid card scene as the wrestling community has grown more fond of mid card people more than the hardcore wrestling fans are always vying for mid carders, even to this day, to be world champions, no matter who they are. Um, like Dolph Ziggler, Rusev, all these guys, they always want them to be world champion. Kofi Kingston was on the mid card for a solid 10 years,
Damn, yeah.
before he ever won that big one.
That's someone who we should
You
talk
know,
about too. Kofi.
yeah, Kofi is huge, and I think it made Kofi Mania mean even like much more. If Kofi was like that from the get go, there would be no Kofi Mania. Um, it was one of the best feel good moments of this generation.
What got you back to wrestling?
Yeah, basically, Mustafa Ali getting effed up got
Man,
me
poor
back into
Mustafa.
wrestling.
He was gonna have so many good things ahead of him. He could have
Now he
won the
gets to feud
title.
with Dominic on NXT. Yeah,
Whoa.
you get to get
Um,
Dominic over.
yeah, the mid carders that I can think of in the 2010s and now, you pretty much mentioned them all. Rusev, Damien Sandow was someone who had so much potential as well, and Damien Mizdow was that was good shit. That was good TV. And then WWE thought that the reason why we cheered Damien Mizdow was because he was impersonating someone. No, we were cheering for him because it was entertaining. So they kind of just made him Macho Man now afterwards. Remember that with Axel Mania, Curtis Axel, and then that was scrapped immediately because Hulk Hogan said the N word. Um, Christian, again, is someone in the 2010s. He's one of the people who held the IC title who I think, oh yeah, it looks perfect on him. That's the first person I think of, or one of the first people I think of when it comes to holding the IC title, the white strap, which was brought back by Cody Rhodes. Huge in the mid card in the 2010s.
Yeah, definitely. 2008 to 2014, Cody Rhodes is another one of those guys that we talk about. I remember someone saying the other day, like, Big Gold was always second to WWE Championship on SmackDown, and Cody Rhodes was the guy who could have won the Big Gold on SmackDown.
Yeah,
Especially mustache Cody Rhodes, like 2010 Cody Rhodes. That was probably peak Cody Rhodes at the time. Um, Him and Rey Mysterio put on a killer match at WrestleMania 26, and it's really cool to see a guy like Ray wanting to work with someone like that and elevate him to that level because he personally goes to Vince and asks, "This is the guy I want to work with because he's next, he's up next." And look where Cody is today.
mm-hmm.
Cody is, and we talked about babyface promos, right? The best babyface promo in the business. Um, Cody
Cody.
Rhodes.
Yeah, um, Cody. I thought he was gonna get that huge push after that battleground match with the Shield with Goldust, and then because he was
No, he's gonna get
huge.
fired.
Yeah, he got yeah. No, he becomes Stardust a year later because that's good entertainment. That's the type of shit. Bad News Barrett was someone in the mid card that everyone
The
wanted.
goat. The
Oh my!
goat.
Why the hell? And then you people had to cheer for him, which made him get buried pretty much. They took his gimmick away from him, and then he became King Barrett. Neville is someone who I also think of when it comes to the main event scene. Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, even though nowadays they can be considered main eventers, especially Kevin Owens. Um, but there was a brief time in like 2018 where they started using top stars as mid carders. We mentioned Seth Rollins, but Roman Reigns also held it in a kind of unmemorable um, run, in my opinion. But and then now we are here in 2023, where the mid carders are Austin Theory as the U.S. title, Gunther as the IC champion, and Dominic Mysterio as the North American champion. And if we want to go further, we have Chris Statlander as TBS champion and Luchasaurus as TNT champion. I love that whole gimmick, bro. Christian's great.
He is. But I know, like with Gunther and stuff, I think reiterating that point, I don't think mid card title equals mid carder. Uh, Especially when we see in the case of Roman and Seth back in the day. Uh, to me, that's not the mid card. Those are not the mid carders. They're the, at least by my own personal definition of the workhorse, the consistent guys, the grinders. Today, someone I really think about with mid card is Chad Gable. Like the the most
Really?
consistent, the most consistent guy on the roster. He's the most reliable guy you could go to on a week by week basis for Raw. And unfortunately, he's probably not going to win a mid card title anytime soon, especially because he's on Raw and that boy Gunther got it.
Hey,
Uh,
McIntyre might get it soon. And maybe something will happen.
McIntyre, maybe. The more and more that thing is going on, the more and more I think McIntyre's not going to win it.
Really?
Yeah, I think Gunther's got to retain that at SummerSlam. But yeah, like you said, mid card today, I'm thinking Chad Gable. I'm thinking still guys like The Miz. You know, I'm thinking guys like Shinsuke Nakamura.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Bronson Reed.
uh, these are newer guys coming up. Bronson Reed, Tommaso Ciampa, Austin Theory is the face of the mid card on SmackDown. Karrion
Sheamus.
Karrion Cross is a guy who unfortunately cannot crack that mid card. Can't even crack like make the mid card work, and that's how
He's
you get to the top of the card. You have to make the mid card work, right? If you can't make this work, you're not gonna be world champion, son. Um,
What do you think? What do you think about AEW's mid card scene? 'Cause I know you have some stuff to say about that. Women's and men's.
Women's, it's crap. Um, their
What are
women's
they doing?
division is, huh?
I don't know what they're doing with the women's division because I haven't. When was the last time Chris Statlander was on TV? I don't know.
I think they're trying to do like what they're doing with Orange Cassidy and have her defend it on a weekly basis and make it like really like make her have these good matches and stuff.
But she
But
hasn't.
at the end of the day, like even if they are having great matches, you have to or good matches. What is wrestling, man? It's freaking. Why are these people fighting on my TV? Why do I care that this person is beating this person up? Where are the freaking storylines? That's all. And I'm not saying it's an easy thing to do because it's not. It's not easy to make compelling stories for wrestlers. That's why the people who are doing it at the highest level still struggle with it. But you see it right now in WWE. That's something they have been improving on because even there they lack with the women's mid card scene, right? Um, we talk about people. It's only like the top of the card for the women in WWE, and if you're not at the top of the card, you kind of don't matter, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, women's tag team championships are the thing, and Sonya Deville and Chelsea Green are hoping to make that the most important thing, according to Chelsea Green, in her opinion. And I like what she's doing in that she says like, look how we talk, everything we do, everything we say makes you react in a way, whether it's booing, whether it's laughing, whether it's cheering, whether it's posting about it on social media. You are react. How many people have already said Chelsea Green is so entertaining? Chelsea Green is so funny. I can't say the same about Sonya Deville, but Chelsea Green is so entertaining. I'm pretty sure Sonya Deville's um biggest career highlight is being stalked, so I can't say much about her.
Sonia, if you want to be on the show, I would be more than happy to interview
Jake can
you
interview you.
one
I
on
ain't doing
one.
that.
Same thing with Natalia and Will Ospreay and anyone else that Hottie is
Liv
indirectly
Morgan.
hurt. Um,
Hurt. Get some skin. Grow some thick skin up in here. This is restless. We give it to you
yeah,
straight. If you come on the show, I will criticize you. Like I told Trick Williams at Summer of Champions. Turn on Carmelo Hayes, dog. You don't need him. If he is your friend, why hasn't he given you a title shot?
I just want to give a big shout out or an apology to I believe Grizzly Gray, Grizzly Gaines. Uh,
Wait, you can't even say his name right now, dog. You can't even say his name. Pull him up. So
yeah,
me and Jake recently attended New Texas Pro Wrestling Summer, not summer, Indie Showcase 3, Texas Indie Showcase 3. As you can see right here, I have my media pass. Um, we
uh,
had a great time, and we got to run into a lot of fans and people we interact with on in the wrestling community,
hell yeah,
like Grizzly Gaines.
hell
And
yeah, love Grizzly
Jake came up
Gaines.
to him. Jake, what did you say to this young man, this great man, this
He is a great
lifelong
man.
professional wrestling fan?
So you see, I wasn't paying attention, and I think I heard Hottie say Big Propaganda was here like hours earlier. You said Big
Oh,
Propaganda,
yeah, I
yes, you.
said Big Propaganda was here, and there was one dude with his baby, and I said, "Look, it's Big Propaganda."
I didn't see it. I didn't see him, but then at the end of the show, someone shake my hand, and I was like, "Oh, um, I'm tired. Whatever." Big Propaganda, right? Oh nah, I'm Grizzly, but yeah, close enough.
We don't see color here at Wrestlers. It was just like Lance, our friend Lance, 20 minutes later, who's training to become a wrestler. What we're talking to Mysterious Q, one of the greatest wrestlers in all of Texas, and we're shaking his hand, telling him bye. And Lance is like, extends his hand. He's like, "Who are you?" And I'm like, "Bro, that's Mysterious Q." How you gonna say that to him after just talking to him with like we were talking to him for 20 minutes? Lance is standing there the whole time. He's like, "Who are you?"
Who's Mysterious Q? You know?
Yeah, one of the
But
goats of Texas. If you are a WWE fan, AEW fan, you don't watch indie wrestling, go right now and watch Mysterious Q. One of the greatest to ever do it in this great state of Texas. He'll be performing in New York pretty soon too. So look at him now before he signs with a big company because you will not regret it.
we talked to him. So we
Yeah.
were so if you join us, you're on the bandwagon, and we don't like people joining in on bandwagons. We start the trends, we don't follow them. Damn, that's a promo right there. But anyways,
Ooh.
let's go. Let's do it. Let's do it. We have to.
We have to
Wrapping the
hit it.
episode up, we have to hit number 5. Who is our top 5 favorite mid-carders of all time? This isn't the best mid-carders. There surely are better. But these are my favorite. These are Hottie's favorite. I don't know what
Yeah,
Hottie's going to say. He doesn't know what I'm going to say. Who's your number 5?
Finley.
Finley. Oh,
Finley.
my name is Finley, and I love to fight. Mine's The
Who's your
Miz, number 5. Love The Miz, bro. So many good mid-carders. What about you? Who's your number 4?
My number 4 is Jake the Snake Roberts. The man.
Damn. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. You can't leave him off the list. Personal favorite, so you can't leave him off the list if you like. But he is your namesake, so if you do, haram. Jake the Snake is an incredible talent, and I recommend everyone go back and watch his matches.
I think you're an incredible talent, Hottie.
Oh, thank you. I also think you're a talent.
Okay, so my number 4 is
That means you have to be talented.
Razor Ramon, number 4. Woo! You
Can't be
know,
throwing around the word incredible like that.
there's a fly on my screen. Ew. Okay, but number 4, yeah, Razor Ramon. I think that it's crazy that Razor has never won a world title in either WWE or WCW. Isn't that weird to think about? Kevin would always book himself to win, not his friend. Fuck his friend. Speaking of friends that Kevin Nash has, 123 Kid is X-Pac is someone who we didn't mention in this episode. So shout out him. He's a big mid-carder. Who's your number 3?
My number 3 is Carlito, the big fro, the big dude. Um, Such a cool dude in real life too. Such a nice guy. Carlito is amazing and an incredible talent, like we mentioned before. One of the most naturally gifted athletes in this business. Could have been there. He wasn't though.
Yeah, I mean, my number 3, honestly, same thing. Owen Hart. No, I'm kidding. Number 3 is Owen Hart. Yeah, I think the Owen Hart won some banger matches, held the IC title, did some great things with that. I believe he held the European title too. Did some interesting things with that. Nation Domination, he did fun things. Going against his brother was great. I loved Owen Hart. Whenever he teamed with Yokozuna, that was fun too. Hell yeah. With Jim Cornette, Camp Cornette. Love Jim Cornette. I don't love him, but he's better than Vince Russo, if that means anything. Who's your number 2? Who's your second favorite? Who is numero duo?
It's someone who we didn't even mention, or maybe slightly mention, but Scotty Too Hottie. This man is so entertaining to me. He is so awesome, and he is my namesake. Yeah. I take my nicknames from him, and the worm is so iconic. He literally got over by just doing the worm.
I think Scotty Too Hottie's more of a jobber than a fucking mid-carder.
He was former light heavyweight champion, former hardcore champion. Don't disrespect my man.
Hardcore champion.
Yeah.
You know who else
like
was
Jeff Hardy, like RVD, like some of the greatest.
Like The Undertaker was hardcore champion.
Or maybe Mankind was hardcore champion. There you go.
Yeah. Number 2. Ain't no make-believe. It's John Morrison. Hell yeah. I was on a whole dirt sheet binge watch while watching or while prepping for this episode to record it. And oh my god, I forgot how much better John Morrison was before he returned to WWE with his drippy drip thing and his Johnny TV on AEW thing. But I found it cool. I was really supporting him when he beat up Epic Mealtime in that one boxing match thing. Did you see that?
Yeah.
Hell yeah, you do it, John Morrison, Johnny Nitro. Woo! Woo! He was I mean, by the way, you can see how cool John Morrison was for the fact that when Chris Benoit did some family activities in that Night of Champions pay-per-view, he was the replacement that WWE gave to CM Punk. Out of anyone, they gave Johnny Nitro it. And Johnny Nitro won the ECW World Title belt. Think about how good Johnny... Yeah, think about how good John Morrison is now. Boom. Who's your favorite mid-carder of all time? But first, here's a word from our sponsors. Dunkin' Donuts. They make a good mango nada.
Taco Bell. They make a decent Diet Pepsi. How do they do it?
It's like it's
The
like a
world
push
may
of the button. Who's your
the
favorite?
world may never know. Um, yeah, number one. It's too easy. One of my favorite wrestlers of all time is a mid carder. It's my boy Christian. Uh,
Oh yeah,
Christian. He's just so nice with it, bro. He's just so nice with it. This man hit the unprettier, and you were not pretty anymore.
it's
That's
called the
how
kill
hard he hit it.
switch.
Yeah, he killed the switch on all his peeps out there, including me. Loved him. All his when he returned, announced teams got hype. Announced teams got.
It's Christian.
Why do you
Check
sound
out,
more confused than happy? That's what I want to know. um, you know what?
bro,
Sorry, I know we're talking about Christian. How have we not mentioned the Hurricane though? How have we not mentioned Matt
dude.
Hardy version 1? Holy crap! Yeah, wait, 1 second, 1 second.
Matt,
Take off Scotty 2 Hardy off the list. Throw in Matt Hardy version 1.
yeah. The what was his fucking thing? The Sensei of Matitude or something?
Yeah, the Matt facts, bro.
The
Matt
Matt
ha-
facts.
Matt greatly enjoys dairy products. Like he's legit a creative genius who never got to play around. So and Brock Lesnar threw him through a wall.
Dude, that
Maybe if
was
you had a
sick
little
as
bit more
hell.
attitude.
Shit. Fucking. And of course, Shannon Moore was his buddy for a time being. Remember
Shannon
that?
less, bro. Shannon less. He's not.
Bro. When
He sucked.
going back to John Morrison and the Miz,
Who's your
real
number one?
quick, real quick. I'm talking about Shannon Moore. I remember seeing this episode where they were like, "Watch this, watch this sketch of us being or not honky tonk man, Jimmy Wang Yang and Shannon Moore." And then John Morrison and the Miz are both dressed up as Jimmy Wang Yang, and the Miz was like, "Why aren't you Shannon Moore?" Because who the hell wants to be Shannon Moore? True, bro. Who wants to
I
be
love
Shannon?
stuff like that, man. I love stuff like that.
My favorite, though. My favorite. Drum roll, please. I already
Turbulent.
mentioned him a lot. It's freaking Gold Dust. Gold Dust, I think, is the most underrated wrestler of all time, in my opinion. In fact, I don't know who it is.
Whoa.
Okay, maybe not of all time, but definitely in my
Whoa.
top three. But I forgot who was it. It's like this guy who does like, oh yeah, here he is. Shout out to official.eli140 on TikTok. For talking mad shit about Gold Dust. No. Why is Gold Dust always in your bottom ranking when you do those TikTok filter rankings of wrestlers? Gold Dust is not number 5. Why are you putting people like Austin Theory above Gold Dust? Gold Dust is better.
We
Fucking
always
shit.
be giving shout outs to the most random people, bro. Grizzly Games got a shout out today. Mr. Q got shout out. This TikTok channel got shout out.
Official.eli140. I find it disrespectful about what you do to Gold Dust. Have you seen what he's done? But anyways, don't give hate to official.eli140. It's all in good fun. I enjoy his videos. It's just Gold Dust deserves the recognition he deserves. Did you see him talking to Conan O'Brien? He was just breathing on Conan O'Brien.
Well, if you live in the Austin area, you can go train with Gold Dust as gay Dustin Rhodes
As
at the
gay
Rhodes
Dustin
Wrestling
Rhodes?
Academy. At Dustin Rhodes Wrestling Academy.
They said
Did I
as
say
gay
gay?
Dustin Rhodes. That's just
Hope I didn't say that.
1999 Gold Dust.
This is a shout out to the the Rhodes Wrestling Academy, of course.
Not
That
the
gives
90
me an
factory.
idea. That gives me an idea. But yes, so your top 5, that sounds pretty amazing. I would rename mine by low-key forgot it.
I'll rename mine and I'll rename yours for you. Okay.
Wow.
I don't remember yours, but mine was The Miz, Razor Ramon, Owen Hart, John Morrison, and Goldust. And yours was like Jake Roberts, Matt Hardy,
Carlito,
Finley, and Christian. Not in that order.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
There you go. Why was Scotty
Finlay.
Tuhati number 2?
I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't going in order. I was just naming these people.
Oh. Well, anyways, thanks for watching. Thanks
Yes.
for liking. Thanks for subscribing. And if you haven't subscribed, then what are you doing? You could be seeing more mid-card stuff. Because from now on, from this day on, we're just going to talk about mid-carders. No main event. You guys don't deserve it yet. I'm kidding.
Yeah. And as always, stay restless.
Restless.
Yeah.